Okay. We should have a few more people coming in, but we'll go ahead and get started so we're not too far behind on time. I just wanted to do a quick welcome and thank you so much for joining before handing off the baton to a few of my colleagues today. So welcome and thank you for joining the International Rescue Committee in Salt Lake City's virtual town hall. My name is Jesse Sheets. I work at the IRC as the development manager. We're grateful for the opportunity to connect with you. We understand just how many Zoom calls you've been asked to join over the past few months. So we appreciate your time and attention today. We continue to hold out hope that we can invite you back to our office for these types of events sometime in the near future. However, for today, a virtual gathering will have to do. Before we get started, I did want to take a brief moment to address a few housekeeping notes. As I mentioned right at the beginning, please note that we are recording this call, and we will send out a link to the recording a little bit later this week. Please feel free to share that recording on with your networks and those who might be interested in learning more about the IRC in Salt Lake City and the work that we do. Next, due to the number of participants and incoming participants, we're going to keep everyone on mute to ensure the speakers are not interrupted. And then finally, we'll hold additional questions until the end. I'll monitor the chat throughout the presentation today, provide answers to quick questions as I'm able, and collect a list of longer questions to be asked during the short Q&A right at the end. If we're unable to answer your questions today, I'll be sure to follow up and connect with you later this week. So today we're going to take the next 45 minutes or so to discuss and hear from members of our leadership team here in Salt Lake City, including Natalie El-Deiry, our executive director, James Hunter, New Roots program manager, and Olivia Whiteley, the Utah State Advocacy Officer. Before I share the presentation we prepared, I did want to take a brief moment to have each of our speakers introduce themselves. We'll start with Natalie.
Hi, everyone. As Jesse said, my name is Natalie El-Deiry. I am the Executive Director for the International Rescue Committee. I see a lot of familiar names on the screen. It's nice to connect with you all again. And for those of you who I haven't met, I'm happy that you have taken the time to join us today.
Great. Thanks, Natalie. And James?
Hi, everyone. I'm James Hunter. I'm the New Roots program manager here in Salt Lake City. Thank you for allowing me to share some of the work that we've accomplished this year. I currently oversee our agricultural and food access programming here in Salt Lake.
And finally, Olivia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Whiteley, and I'm the Utah State Advocacy Officer for the Salt Lake City office, and I'm excited to share more about a little bit of the work we've been doing these past couple of months with you.
Okay, thanks all. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with the presentation, and then feel free to let me know when I should transition slides for you. So as I said, a quick welcome, and then Natalie, feel free to take it from there.
Sure, will do. Well, again, as Jesse expressed his deep appreciation for you joining us today, I would also like to echo that. We know you're all very busy, and the fact that you've chosen to take the time to hear from us at the IRC means a great deal. Your partnership and commitment is paramount to our success in serving refugees and other new American communities in Salt Lake. And so I'm going to start with just a few brief organizational updates, and then as Jesse mentioned, we have James and Olivia to share a little bit more in depth about our work in New Roots and with advocacy. I'm in my office today. We are currently operating under what we're calling limited operations. We have some staff here, as well as the ability to see some clients by appointments, but largely our work remains remote. As we all know, the cases in Utah are continuing to spike, and the health and safety of our staff and of our clients is, of course, at the forefront of everything that we're doing and that we will continue to do. So that being said, I apologize for the mask and if it's just a little muffled. So first I wanted to start off with the fiscal year in review and share some of the highlights from fiscal year 20. Over the last 9 months, the coronavirus pandemic has profoundly impacted our work, as it has for many of you in your lives, but especially with the refugee and immigrant community we serve, our volunteers, our staff, and our programs. As we close the fiscal year, which ended on September 30th, we wanted to take the opportunity to update you on where we ended. Of course, there's a great deal of uncertainty in what lies ahead for refugees and other new American members with the upcoming election and the end of the calendar year. But for now, we want to just recognize our work and take a moment of pause and to celebrate the great things that we've accomplished. We ended the year with 171 arrivals, largely representing refugees from Afghanistan, from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and with some smaller populations from Ethiopia, Sudan, and Iraq. And we served an additional 12 individuals who arrived as asylees for a total of 183 new cases in our extended case management program. While there were pauses in resettlement due to COVID-19, the majority of those arrivals actually came during the pandemic, which was something that we were quite proud of, that we could continue to welcome families in spite of everything that was going on, and to keep families safe, housed, get kids enrolled in whatever educational services were available at the time, and continue to be and work to make sure that families were becoming integrated into our community. So last year we resettled 318 individuals, and while there was a sharp decline, the total cases served for our extended case management program in fiscal year 20 were about 489. I'm very proud to say that we sustained our programming and even added some positions to support our COVID response efforts and other program operations. We've grown our office to 85 full and part-time staff members, as well as AmeriCorps, VISTA and AmeriCorps state positions. And you will also note that we did not see a decline in the clients that were served, and in fact increased those services. Our refugee resettlement and case management work, so those are the new arrivals and the clients who are engaged in the 24-month case management, constitute about 23% of our total clients served. So our work is growing and it's expanding, and we've become a resource to the broader refugee, asylum, immigrant community as well. This would not have been possible without the support of the community, of course. Our volunteer numbers decreased quite dramatically. Typically, we would have about 1,500 volunteers engaged with our work, but we're very happy that we were still able to engage 422 individuals and contribute about 13,000 volunteer hours of service. And that, again, has helped us to accomplish so much in this last year. Next slide. Jesse, can you advance this slide? Thank you. And so wanted to give a quick highlight of some of the fundraising success that we've had. We've raised a record-breaking $1.5 million this year with the generous support of corporations, foundations, and individuals. Much of this was in response to COVID-19, and we've put those funds to good use, and we continue to do so. Also notable are some contributions of new funders investing in small business, like eBay's Global Give, and programs that address the social determinants of health, like the Cambia Health Foundation. This is especially critical as we see the financial impact of COVID-19 to many of our individual donors. Over the past 3 years, our individual donor base has climbed steadily, but we anticipate seeing a decrease in fiscal year 21. On behalf of everyone at the IRC and the people we serve, I want to share my sincere appreciation to our donors and partners. You can see your investment is truly making an impact in the lives of refugees and new Americans in our community. And of course, if you'd like to learn more about that impact and share in some of the successes that we've had, we have our annual fundraising event called Breaking Bread, which is a celebration. And while we won't be able to do it in person this year, we will be hosting it virtually on November 19th. And Jesse will put the link in the chat and talk a little bit more about that later on. The next slide, please. In terms of donor engagement, hearing from you, our donors, volunteers, and partners is extremely important as we chart the years ahead. In September, we sent a survey out to the community, and we received 107 responses around donor and volunteer engagement. We're grateful for those of you who took the time to reply and deeply appreciate your feedback. We learned a lot in the survey around the program areas that donors are most interested in supporting. As you can see in this slide, the majority of individuals are most deeply connected to our work in the areas of refugee resettlement, as well as with youth and children. Also, the desire to more personally know about the needs of the community and how you all can support our work was strongly resonated in the survey. And so we'll continue to offer opportunities for engagement, and given the current pandemic conditions, offering more opportunities to engage with us virtually. But we also learned that we can do a better job of explaining how your gifts and how your support are being used. So in fiscal year 21, we'll be working on more strategic communications to ensure that you know where your dollars are being spent through a variety of communication channels, including more donor and partner town hall sessions like this and other opportunities. The next slide, please. Next slide. Just, there we go. One back. Perfect. And so, as you can imagine, the majority of our time and resources have gone to COVID-19 response over the last 9 months. Despite the challenges posed by the pandemic, the IRC in Salt Lake City has remained committed to our mission. As the risks intensified and continue to do so, we've adapted our programs to remote delivery, expanded our portfolio of services, and partnered with local health organizations to ensure critical information and support is reaching refugee and immigrant communities. Most notably, we have distributed over $58,000 in emergency housing assistance to refugees impacted by the current economic conditions and those who are experiencing other hardships. And in addition, we've spent around $15,000 in PPE, translation of materials for COVID outreach and education, supplies to keep staff safe, and tools to improve remote working conditions. We've also distributed over 350 emergency kits to households impacted by COVID, particularly those with positive cases, and over 1,000 masks. Through our community health workers, refugees who test positive are receiving personalized support to ensure their needs are met and that they have access to the resources they need. As we were seeing all over the state, there are spikes in cases among the general population, but also among the refugee population, with the majority of the cases reported from people who have been in the US for more than 5 years. And so that tells me that the interventions that we are doing with early arrivals is working, and we've been able to mobilize support quickly for those people who have arrived earlier in their pipeline. Despite the challenges in distance learning, we've been able to deliver close to 1,200 hours of safe in-person or virtual instruction for financial literacy, for tech mentors, health education, and more. And we've learned a lot at this time. And one of the most notable realizations is that shifting the way that we do business has the potential to reduce 3 of the largest barriers clients face to full participation in our programs under normal conditions. Those are transportation, childcare, and language. So digital tools are really helping us to overcome those barriers. That's not to say it's without challenges, because there are significant challenges to moving to more digital platforms and remote work, but there certainly is promise there. So I want to turn it over now to James Hunter. And he's our, as Jesse mentioned, our New Roots program manager. You can go to the next slide. The growing season is wrapping up with one of our most successful seasons to date that supported significant income growth for our farmers, but also addressed the food access needs of some of Salt Lake's most vulnerable community members. So I'm excited to hear and to share what the New Roots team has been up to, and James will take it over from here.
Sure. Thanks, Natalie, and thanks, Jesse, for controlling the slides. I just wanted to give a quick overview of our New Roots program here in Salt Lake City for those of you who may be unfamiliar, and then we'll dive into some of the work that we've been accomplishing during 2020 and during the pandemic. New Roots in Salt Lake City is wrapping up our 10th growing season. Broadly speaking, the New Roots name is used in about a dozen of the IRC locations across the country. We started the New Roots program here in Salt Lake City in 2010 in partnership with the county, broadly focused on agricultural production and food security initiatives for refugees and new Americans, primarily in Salt Lake County. And this takes effect through a couple of different areas. So we have community gardens spread across the county and engage in food security activities there, emergency food assistance, mental health adjustment groups, and training and technical assistance in horticultural and agricultural production, specifically tailored for growing in northern Utah. We also have our really robust farmer incubator program currently operating on 2 sites in Salt Lake County, and we support refugee farmers in access to land, materials, resources, and selling into various primarily direct-to-consumer markets. And then we run 3 farmers markets and coordinate food access activities at those sites as well. You can forward the slide, Jesse. So to kind of give an overview, this is Omar Aguma, one of our farm sites down in Draper, Utah. In 2020, we had 40 farmers participating from 10 different countries. We currently are operating at 2 different farm sites. So one off of Redwood Road in West Valley City, totaling about 5 acres. And then one down in Draper, Utah, the former Whedon farm, which totals about 13 acres. Last year's total numbers for 2019 farmers generated about $63,000 in gross income, and due to some marketing changes, shifts in production styles, and a really favorable growing season, farmers this year were able to generate upwards of $170,000 and are actually still making sales this week into a couple of different food access avenues, and then wrapping up our community supported agriculture program. So farmers this year essentially were able to triple their gross revenue, which is just a monumental success for the folks who are engaging in that program. They're able to support themselves, support their families, and as we'll see in some of these later slides, actually able to provide fresh produce that supports their communities and folks in their communities who are experiencing food insecurity. A community garden program likewise continued to grow this year. We took on operations at 2 additional garden sites. We added about 50 refugee families into those that we're serving. We began in partnership with Dry Creek Charities, supporting operations at the Mount Olympus Refugee Garden in Holiday, which we previously helped to support in 2013 and 2014. And so it's been a busy season for the community garden staff. We typically employ about 6 different workshops throughout the season, in-person workshops with community gardeners. Obviously this year we weren't able to meet in person with gardeners throughout the majority of the season. So we shifted into a remote delivery of services there. One of our AmeriCorps Vistas this year was able to develop all of our nutrition and healthy eating education programming into a series of 7 YouTube videos, and then deliver those using WhatsApp and other digital messaging services, and conduct small 1 to 3 client workshops discussing these nutrition, these healthy eating principles. And then due to the number of Nepali and Bhutanese community members that we were serving, we were able to work with an intern to translate 2 of those workshops into Nepali and deliver those as well. And so, as Natalie was mentioning, the remote delivery of services is actually really beneficial for the overall sustainability of the New Roots program, because we're able to deliver these programming without having to arrange childcare, without having to work with the clients to figure out transportation. And then we're able to develop these resources which we can use in coming seasons. So it's a permanent resource which is easy to deploy and easy to moderate when we're working in these group discussions. And so we're really excited about those shifts in the program this year and our ability to really do more with less. And then finally, on the farmers market side of our operations, this year we opened our 3rd farmers market just outside of our downtown office location. So we currently are operating the Sunnyvale Farmers Market in West Mill Creek, so about 3900 South and 700 West at Sunnyvale Park, which was in its 7th year of operation this year. A market at the South Salt Lake Central Park Community Center off of 2700 South, and then at the IRC office. And so the IRC office and South Salt Lake locations, we combined with our community supported agriculture program drop-off sites. So we're able to drive a bit of traffic to those locations with folks who are picking up their CSA shares for the season. Additionally, at our Sunnyvale Park location, we had to adapt programming for this year. Typically, we have youth programming, distribute kids' lunches, and then also host a variety of nonprofit partners there. But this year, due to COVID, we had to eliminate some of the youth programming, and we had prepared meals to go, so bag lunches for kids that weren't able to be consumed on site. But we're able to make a significant shift and allow farmers to sell directly there at the market. We had 20 farmers this year who sold for the first time at a farmer's market in the US. And likewise, similar to our total sales, we saw overall sales triple year over year from 2019. So we're really excited about the growth we've seen at the farmers markets and the opportunities we'll see moving forward. Jesse, do you want to forward to the next slide? Thank you. So, and I did see a question come in about the hours of the farmers markets. So all 3 farmers markets have concluded for the season, unfortunately. As you might have noticed, we had our first hard freeze over the weekend. Typically, the Sunnyvale Farmers Market runs June through October on Saturday afternoons. We anticipate that being the case again in 2021. And then the South Salt Lake and Downtown Market will be running on Wednesday afternoons. This year it ran 4 to 6:30, and we'll probably see similar hours next year. So as part of our COVID response activities this year, we recognized the need to respond to both acute and ongoing food insecurity in refugee communities and in the clients that we serve. And so we supported these clients through a variety of activities throughout the season, from the outbreak of COVID up until this afternoon, actually. And I kind of wanted to cover some of those processes because honestly, New Roots hadn't dove into some of these areas until the COVID outbreak forced us to, and it's allowed us to really become innovative, find additional sources of funding, and reach a new segment of the population. From the first day of COVID, we began offering emergency food assistance boxes to families who were affected by COVID. And so in the first 72 hours after our office closed in March, we contacted all 180 New Roots families, conducted a rapid assessment around their health, education, food security, economic needs, along with the rest of the office. And if they were scoring as needing food assistance, we secured donations from the LDS Bishop's Storehouse and then delivered those emergency food boxes to clients. We duplicated this effort across the rest of the office, and so we're able to really just provide that emergency service for hygiene, for food, and what we've done then is we've continued that process throughout the rest of the season. So at any point in time, if one of the New Roots clients demonstrates a need for emergency food or hygiene supplies or cleaning supplies, we're able to have those on hand and deliver those within 24 hours. Likewise, as the number of COVID cases grew in the community, we replicated that service with any COVID positive households. And so any New Roots clients or their family members who are experiencing a COVID positive case in their household, we're able to deliver those emergency food boxes within 24 hours. Coupled with that, we increased our nutrition education and healthy eating education programming this year to include some of the remote delivery of services that I was referring to earlier. This year, we expanded our community-supported agriculture program from 50 shares up to 170 shares, and we're just wrapping up a 4-week extension with some of the members. And as part of that, we solicited donations for new arrivals who arrived in early July. And due to the generosity of donors, we were able to provide a community-supported agriculture box to each of those families who arrived in July every week for the duration of our 14-week CSA season. And the way that we structured it is that we had volunteers at our Sunnyvale Farmers Market each Saturday pick out culturally relevant produce, and then we deliver those directly to the families after the market. And so it wasn't a standard CSA share with more, say, Western produce. It included a lot of culturally relevant produce that the families would then be able to cook with. Beyond that, each week, some members aren't able to pick up their CSA share. So we collect those at the end of the distribution and then have those on hand to distribute to new arrival families or families in casework. We continue to run our Sunnyvale Food Pantry each week of the 18-week farmers market season this year, and with dried goods supplemented from the LDS Bishop's Storehouse. And then finally, I think in the most important part of food access is recognizing that while emergency food access is really important, many of the community members are able to purchase food and utilize SNAP benefits and to do so. And so as part of this, at the Sunnyvale Farmers Market and the other two farmers markets, we partner with the Utah Department of Health to accept a Double Up Food Bucks program, which is a dollar-for-dollar match with the use of SNAP dollars in order for folks to access local fresh produce. And we just are seeing some of the final numbers come out from across the state. And the Sunnyvale Farmers Market was actually the largest redemption site for SNAP EBT benefits at farmers markets across the state of Utah, and likewise for Double Up Food Bucks redemption. So it represented about 25% of SNAP dollars spent at farmers markets in Utah, and about 20% of the Double Up Food Bucks incentive program. So we're really excited to see Sunnyvale as such a culturally relevant food access avenue. And then we can move on to the next slide. So this is just going into a little more detail about some of the emergency food box deliveries. What we have also found is that there's a demand for fresh produce within these emergency food boxes. So beginning in late summer, we started soliciting funding requests to provide more fresh produce in these emergency food boxes. And beginning in this month in October, we were able to secure some funding from the Utah Division of Multicultural Affairs to support a mass distribution effort around fresh produce. And if we can actually move on to the final slide, and I'll kind of talk about more before handing off to Olivia. This funding stream allowed us to provide emergency food assistance during the last quarter of 2020. And what we are doing is continuing to provide emergency food assistance to refugee families who are experiencing or expressing food insecurity, and also those who are affected by COVID-19, either through positive cases in their households or through economic or inability to access food resources. And we're doing this through the distribution of both fresh produce, culturally relevant staples, and other dried foods items, and then also the purchase of halal goat meat from our refugee goat project. And when we were anticipating some of this funding potentially coming through earlier in the season in September, the funding was released in early October. My wonderful team was able to pivot over the course of 72 hours and build out a purchasing and distribution system for the fresh produce. I can say that today, as of the first 3 weeks of the program, we were able to purchase over $11,000 of fresh produce from refugee farmers. We were then able to package that into boxes and deliver to over 250 refugee families, which at an average box value of around $50. So this is just an immense value for families to be able to access fresh produce. We're continuing to conduct those distribution efforts this week and into next week, and then we'll shift into purchasing and distributing culturally relevant staples and halal goat meat. So we're really excited about being able to expand our food security efforts and to work directly with refugee farmers. And it's a win-win for both the clients who we're serving, for some of the small entrepreneurs, and we're really excited to see where this program can go in 2021. We are looking for funding opportunities to be able to continue this program, recognizing that fresh produce is really valued by community members and serves as a valuable way to fight food insecurity in refugee communities. I did see a quick question about the goat meat. We do have, as some of you may know, a East African refugee goat projects in partnership with several East African communities. Through this funding, we're going to be purchasing 15 goats and having them processed, and then distributing some of that goat meat to families experiencing food insecurity. And certainly can chat about more about that at the end, but at this time wanted to pass it off to Olivia. Thank you all.
Thanks, James. So as mentioned earlier, I'm the Utah State Advocacy Officer for the Salt Lake City office. Our office is part of a larger network of IRC advocates and also part of what is called the Refugee Advocacy Lab, which is a group of resettlement agencies and refugee advocates across the United States. So part of something bigger, as we in the advocacy world like to say. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of our work in terms of federal and state engagement in the state of Utah. So on the federal side, the International Rescue Committee has a federal advocacy team that we liaise with frequently, and we typically are the ones driving engagement with Utah's members of Congress. So over the past several months, we've met with 5 of the 6 of Utah's members of Congress, and some of them we've met with multiple times on issues ranging from asylum to resettlement, to sitting at town halls they're hosting to provide feedback on their bills that could impact our clients, and really working to build relationships between resettlement agencies and direct service providers on the ground and policymakers to ensure that refugees are being supported throughout the entire ecosystem of the refugee resettlement program. And these relationships are highly valuable in a multiplicity of ways, everything from working towards the presidential determination, which I'll get to in just a minute, to ensuring that the needs of our clients are represented in federal appropriations. There are many line items in the state and foreign operations budgets or the labor and health and human services budgets that impact refugee resettlement in the United States. We're working to ensure that the needs of refugees are included in any COVID relief packages that may work their way down the pipeline, any sort of legislation related to new Americans. We often respond to any administrative rule changes that the executive branch would make to alter the operations of a program and provide feedback that way. All types of federal advocacy, we have our hand dipped into those pots. And we are highly open and love to involve our volunteers, our donors and supporters in these events. I see that Eric's on the call. Eric has joined me previously on some of our advocacy days and was really helpful in communicating sort of the robust support for resettlement that Utah has to Senator Lee's office. So if you're interested in any of those opportunities, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. In terms of our state advocacy work, our office is unique in the sense that it has a fully funded advocate. And Utah was chosen because Utah has a long-standing, robust, bipartisan commitment to refugee resettlements that is unique throughout the United States, whether that's in terms of our state legislation that makes it easier for refugees and other of our clients to renew their driver's license, to Governor Herbert quickly providing consent to resettlement in years prior, and expressing it in terms of Utah's longer cultural support of supporting people fleeing dangerous situations. Our state priorities are developed by directly consulting with our program managers, because again, we're really trying to ensure that the needs of our clients are also being met through policy channels. So everything is directly tied back to our programmatic needs. And a couple of our state priorities this year are digital inclusion, improving enrollment practices in Utah public schools, and improving newcomer parent participation in Utah public schools. And I'll highlight one of those in just a minute. If we can move to the next slide, that would be great, Jesse. So one of our federal priorities at the current moment is what's called the presidential determination. The presidential determination is really the bread and butter of resettlement. If we don't have the presidential determination, it's difficult for the resettlement program to continue. Every October, the administration will submit a report to Congress that says how many refugees they would like to resettle in the upcoming fiscal year, and also the allocation of refugees. So many refugees from the Northern Triangle, for example. The administration will then consult with Congress. Typically, this is the judiciary committees, and they'll consult with the staff, they'll consult with the principals, which is just the representatives, and then typically they would make any changes or revisions to the presidential determination, and then the president would sign the presidential determination before the beginning of the next fiscal year, and refugee resettlement would then continue with the goal of reaching the number the president has just set. This year, we have proceeded throughout the letter process. So the letter has been sent to Congress. The administration has consulted both with congressional staff and with the principals in Congress, but the presidential determination is yet to be signed. And we're a month into the next fiscal year, so resettlement is currently on pause, both for this month and indefinitely until the determination will be signed. So that's kind of area issue one with the presidential determination. The second element of the presidential determination is that, no worries, Jesse, is that the number currently is set at 15,000. This is the lowest presidential determination in the history of the United States. Last year was another all-time low at 18,000. The typical historical average, both for Republican and Democratic administrations, is 95,000. So we're way below the mark in terms of what the United States has capacity to resettle and what our office has capacity, particularly in Utah, to serve. I've had a couple of questions in the past asking if this could be due to the coronavirus pandemic, but we can assure you that refugee resettlement is a safe process. Our health team is doing incredibly, as Natalie mentioned earlier. And there really aren't any reasons as to why resettlement numbers should be limited due to the coronavirus outbreak. So those are our two sort of existing areas of concern when it comes to the presidential determination. In terms of what this means for advocacy, first is our federal advocacy is one of the reasons why a presidential determination has been issued in the first place. So we are lucky at least to have a 15,000 number allocated or tentatively allocated pending signature. The second is that this means that we can continue with our robust state level integration policy. We're not going anywhere. The people we serve aren't going anywhere. So our work will continue in that front regardless. And the third is that there is an opportunity here for you to engage both with contacting the White House, but also contacting your members of Congress on this particular issue. And we'll provide an easy way for you to do that towards the end of this presentation. So there's a review of the presidential determination. If we could move to the next slide. As I mentioned previously, digital inclusion is one of our key state-level priority policy initiatives. With coronavirus, we've all transitioned online, whether that's working from home or education happening at home, to ordering groceries at home if you don't want to venture into the store, accessing telehealth services, learning more about what's happening in terms of Utah's health regulations or in terms of election updates and how you can access civic engagement resources. Most activities that we do have sort of moved online for the past couple of months, which I'm sure I don't need to explain to anyone, but that has raised the concerns of how can we ensure that these are not acting as additional barriers to individuals participating in Utah's economy, in Utah's civic society, in Utah's educational opportunities, which has led us to focus on digital inclusion policy. Both in our particular office and across our broader network, digital inclusion is one of the highest barriers of participation. And because some refugees come to the United States without a lot of prior experience with technology, not all, don't want to homogenize, some refugees could be a better digital inclusion expert than myself, I'm sure. But because some come with very limited experience with technology, our programming has developed sort of across the range of digital inclusion efforts. So you'll see on your screen that there are sort of 6 components of connection that are listed here, and our office addresses all of them. We ensure that our clients are able to have subscriptions to broadband services. We run digital literacy programs. One of them is a tech mentor program. I've been a tech mentor to one of our clients. It's an incredible experience and highly focused on ensuring that clients have the skills directly necessary in order to participate in our society. Things like creating a resume on Google Docs, or operating their emails, or using Google Translate or Google Maps. These are all sort of critical pieces, and our programming is tailored to ensure that they have these practical applications at their fingertips. Also technical support, ensuring device provision, and also ensuring that people can use user-friendly content. These 6 components of connection are really critical if we want to ensure that everyone can access the online world. And typically, state policy across the United States has really only focused on infrastructure expansion in rural areas. So we're working with a broad coalition of individuals to ensure that the state policy really approaches digital inclusion and digital policy from the perspective of an underserved community member who would need all of these 6 components of connection to be addressed. And we are working with people at the State Board of Education, the Utah Education Network, the rural telecoms providers, a wide swath of partners. And if I haven't reached out to you yet, I'm working on it and will be reaching out to you shortly if this is your field or area of expertise. These recommendations have really coalesced into 4 general solution areas, of which IRC is leading efforts to expand a program and create a program within the state library to community partners who are working to ensure that digital literacy and devices and tech support and user-friendly content make it into the homes that really need it. And so we're excited to see where this goes and have a variety of options depending on the fiscal climate of the upcoming general session. If we can move to the next slide, Jesse. Which brings me to how else can you be involved if you're interested in supporting these efforts. You can first visit our Take Action page, or you can text rescue to this number, and you'll be able to receive updates both on the federal and the state level of what we're looking for in terms of on-the-ground engagement from you all. These aren't coming from nowhere. These are coming from my colleague named Melinda, who I will say, you know what, we're working on this bill. We could really use people calling their state level legislators. Could you send out a text to everyone asking for their support? These texts typically come once a month. There's usually a link that you can click that will give you a call or an email template. It's very easy. And it's important to remember that these types of actions aren't just things we do to keep you engaged. They're actually useful for us on the policy side, especially on the state and local level. Having one call to your legislature on a particular issue can really elevate that issue to their mind and to help them understand how the community is particularly feeling. Legislators are swamped with bills, particularly in Utah, and they're not experts on every single bill that comes through the session. So having one conversation is really enough to sometimes tip the scale in favor of a policy proposition or not. And we hope that you will share this with your family, with your friends, with your employees, because the more phone calls we can have going out to both our federal and our state legislators, the more that the interests of our clients can be integrated into policy efforts.
Thanks so much, Olivia and James and Natalie. I just wanted to step back in for a brief moment before we transition to the Q&A to provide a few more of the details about our Breaking Bread event, and then we'll get to some questions. So we do have our Breaking Bread, it's a virtual fundraiser coming up on the 19th. In past years, it's been an opportunity for 200 to 300 supporters and refugee families to gather and enjoy a meal together. This year, we'll be pairing a meal pickup from Spice Kitchen Incubator with a virtual program in the evening. So that'll be November 19th. The food pickup is 4 to 6:30, and the virtual program is 7 to 8 p.m. In an effort to be more inclusive of supporters, the virtual program is free to attend, so you can register without making a donation or committing to a food pickup. But making a donation and committing to a food pickup are additional options that support our work and directly support the entrepreneurs in our Spice Kitchen Incubator program. So I will be posting a link to Breaking Bread as we get the Q&A started, but thank you. Okay. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen so we can all come back and see each other. And then I will go ahead and kick off with the few questions that I've received so far, which have been great. So thanks to those who have posed the questions. Thanks for joining us today. I did want to just take a quick moment before we do end to thank James, Olivia, and Natalie for taking time today to provide this presentation, to provide this information for us, and to give us a bit more insight into their day-to-day. So the first that I would really like to ask is maybe to Natalie. A question came through the role of the Cambia Health Foundation and the funding that they're providing, and how that's directly supporting our work.
Sure. Thanks for that question. Cambia Health Foundation is one of several foundations that are investing in our work that moves beyond just the initial resettlement and case management work that we provide. Cambia Health specifically is working, that funding is working to address the social determinants of health, where we have a validated tool, assessment tool, where we are working with clients to assess what areas within the social determinants of health framework they're in need of support, and creating a roadmap and a plan to address those areas. It's kind of largely following a traditional kind of community health worker model, but having a bit of a different framework or spin for the client population that we serve. And so we're very excited about this initiative, especially within our health programming, which has so often been focused more on scheduling appointments, getting clients to their initial screenings and those basic healthcare needs, that we actually get to dig deeper into those needs. And especially, we felt it was especially important for us because the IRC has such robust services that within just the programs that we have, we can start to address some of those social determinants of health through financial coaching, through ESL and language acquisition, through addressing transportation barriers and those types of things. I think you might be muted, Jesse. There you go.
Oh, sorry. I think the next question that I saw come through, maybe James, if you want to take it. The Shalaja had mentioned CSA shares are gorgeous produce, and great to have access to culturally relevant vegetables. What do the farmers do in the off season? Do we have a winter market? What's happening once the frost hits?
Yeah, thanks Shalaja for your support with being a CSA member this year, and for the in terms of what folks do in the wintertime, it kind of varies. The larger farmers actually have a really busy winter season, preparing the beds for fall and winter tillage, and then we'll be starting seeds and transplants and getting some crops planted as early as February. Outside of garlic and some leeks and maybe some onions, not many winter crops grown by the farmers. Some of the farmers take the opportunity to travel. I know one of the farmers is going home to Sudan for 2 months and is excited to see family there. We currently don't have any winter markets. We are building out some season extension infrastructure this winter, some seasonal high tunnels. So the potential for limited winter production in future seasons will be there. But generally, I think they take the time to rest and recover and then get ready for planning for the next season.
Great, thanks, James. I did receive another question, and it may be a bit specific. So Natalie or Olivia, if you have more information about it. It states what is going on with application support for USCIS status change, green card, and naturalization.
It's just such a moving target. I take a deep sigh because it has been very challenging for us over this year. I would be remiss to not mention the Utah Immigration Collaborative, which is a new initiative that is a partnership with 5 different immigrant legal service providers here locally, that the IRC is the lead partner and is bringing the collaboration together to centralize a referral process for people to engage and receive assistance for immigration legal services. So through that, and then through our regular immigration work, we've been able to kind of triage and offer assistance where we can. It has been quite touch and go because of, as you know, is because of the different litigation that starts and stops and kind of keeps going back and forth. I will say that we did help naturalize 238 individuals this year. And one of our largest program areas is our immigration support, where we serve over 1,500 individuals each year. And that is just a testament to our work continues, right? Despite the challenges that we face on the daily, and the nuances of what's happening or coming down the pipeline from this administration or from USCIS, we have been able to continue with their services, and that those 238 people will be voting in this election. And we have secured, legal permanent residence for a lot of people, secured their residency through green cards and helping families reunite despite all that is going on. So it is touch and go. We have a very robust technical team at headquarters who helps us interpret all of the different policy changes that come, on a whim and quite quickly. And so that has been incredibly helpful for us to stay informed and to be able to pivot our services and to be able to educate our clients the best that we can.
Thanks, Natalie. Another one came through, and maybe Natalie and James can tag team on it. What are the most common languages that we need to consider when thinking of your clients? And I know this looks a little bit different from different program segments.
I think for newer arrivals, the languages that we're kind of most that we work with the most are, of course, Arabic, Kiswahili, Kinyarwanda, some French, Burmese, Farsi, Dari, some of those languages for the current refugee population that we're seeing. But of course, as I mentioned before, the refugee resettlement program and extended case management is about 25% of our work. And so we're continuing to work with the broader refugee community, which represents dozens of different languages. I know just within the New Roots program, and James, you can speak to this more, but we have, Nepali, which is from the Bhutanese community who were resettled, years ago, but that language need continues. James, you can add in a little bit more if you'd like.
Right, yeah. In 2020, I think we served clients with 22 different languages. Largest of those were Nepali, Arabic, Kirundi, Kinyarwanda, Kiswahili. And then it gets off into a lot of other, maybe a little bit more rare languages that we might not see as often. Various Burmese dialects, Mai from the Somali Bantu community, and then lots of others. So I think that for some of our programming this year, and for our signage and community and communicating about information about the COVID-19 outbreak, we were generally translating into 10 to 12 languages to provide that information to and outreach to clients.
Great. Thanks, James. Thanks, Natalie. I didn't see another question come in, so I might pose one of my own. Maybe to wrap up the call, but is there something that inspires you to come back every day, that inspires you to, of the work that we're looking forward to committing to, or maybe a mission moment that you'd like to share before the call ends today? And whoever wants to speak up first can go right ahead.
I'm happy to start us off, or to be, the speaker. I think obviously this has been a very difficult time, and if anybody would have asked me, my first 18 months into being an executive director at the IRC, that we would be dealing with not only the threats to refugee resettlements into Native American communities across the country, but a pandemic, an earthquake, engaging in conversations and doing real work around racial injustice, and a variety of other things. And the thing that my mission moment has been a mission year, really, or a mission 9 months. I've been incredibly impressed with our staff's ability to keep moving forward day by day when the work is hard, when people are concerned about the safety of themselves, their community, dealing with children and all of the other factors that many of us are dealing with, but to put on the face and the armor to go and come into work every day, to go out into the community and continue to keep our clients at the forefront of importance has really been the mission moment. And I hope, through this presentation and conversation, that that you have been inspired, as I am inspired every day by the work that we do, and that all that we've accomplished despite all the challenges that we faced. So, and you know, looking forward to post-election time. You will see more communications from us, but we really wanted to take a moment to be sure to highlight some of the incredible work that we've done prior to the election next week, and to make sure that we are able to share and that you can celebrate with us in the incredible work that's happening in our office. And so I'd say it's not only just a one mission moment, but a mission year for me.
Thanks, Natalie. Not to put you on the spot, but James, Olivia, we have 1 minute.
I'm happy to jump in. I mean, Natalie said it much more eloquently than I'll be able to. But for me, it's really these moments of change. When I see community members that haven't previously been maybe super engaged on refugee issues start to become engaged, or when we have broadband service providers talking about the 6 components of connection, which is really unheard of sort of across that broader policy dialogue, or refugee providers coalescing around how we can improve educational opportunities for our clients and for those kids. It's really inspiring to see sort of some of those smaller victories, particularly in a climate that is less friendly to refugee resettlement. And most of the times when I'm scrolling through CNN or the Wall Street Journal on my phone, it's not those victories that are highlighted, but know that they are happening, and that your support and the support of our staff is really crucial to continuing to serve our clients.
And I would echo both of those thoughts and echo Natalie's summation that it's been a mission year. There's so many small moments that have just been incredible to witness, to see our staff come together and respond with just incredible grace and determination and flexibility. It's been incredible. And the clients who we serve, it's just been awesome to work with. I think if there was one moment, it was we run 3 farmers markets, and one of our newest farmers who joined the farm program last year welcomed a baby into their family mid-season, and 2 weeks later they began selling at not 1 but 2 farmers markets every week. And so it was really cool to see the whole family become involved in that farm business, and then support both of those markets and really generate some income for themselves and their families. And so it was really cool to see that level of engagement with a relatively newer participant in the farming program, and despite the pandemic and despite the current environment. So that was really cool.
Thanks, James. And thank you all for joining us today for our 2nd virtual town hall. As I mentioned before, someday soon we will be gathering together in person in our office to enjoy company and to learn more about the work that we're doing. But as Natalie said at the beginning, we really couldn't do the work that we do without the incredible community support from our partners, our individual supporters, and so many more. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll finish up there. I will be sending a link to the recording and then following up with any stray questions that weren't able to be answered during the Q&A today. If anything comes top of mind, please feel free to reach out to me. You have my email address. I can pose questions on to our leadership team. I'll do my best to answer them on my own. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll all talk soon.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.